corrective feedback and uptake in an ESL classroom. This examination of types and frequency of corrective feedback and distribution of uptake used a video classroom observation of a teacher and 6 adult ESL learners. It was produced by the British Study Centre's School of English. The materials used were developed by National Geographic Learning and was part of the Life series promoting relevant and authentic lessons for language learners. The class was less than an hour in length and incorporated communicative tasks in a discussion format that included reading comprehension, vocabulary instruction, and critical thinking and speaking exercises. It was aimed at pre-intermediate language learners. The short text used a lesson called The Last Days of the Rickshaw. Lister and Ranta created a simple taxonomy of types of corrective feedback. These are divided between implicit and explicit feedback and input providing and output prompting. Explicit feedback is characterized by a clear indication of error, whereas implicit feedback is not. Input providing would be things such as recasts or explicit correction. And a model is usually provided of a target-like structure, partial or otherwise. With output prompting, there is an obligation or implication of a need of response from the learner. Those would be clarification requests and repetition, and elicitation and metalinguistic clues. Here are some definitions and characteristics of each of these types of corrective feedback. Input providing is both explicit correction and recasts. Explicit correction is where the correct form or model is explicitly provided. In doing so, it is clearly indicated to the learner that what they said was incorrect. Examples could include statements such as, "you mean," or "you should say." Recasts are reformulations or paraphrases or repetition with change of all or part of a student's utterance, minus the error. Being implicit feedback, they do not use the introductory phrases as with the case of explicit correction. Further, output prompting corrective feedback includes elicitation. This tries to explicitly elicit the correct form by questioning, pausing, intonation, or eliciting completion of an utterance. For example, how can we say? Metalinguistic clues are comments or information that explicitly point to the nature of the error or its grammatical accuracy without providing the correct form. For example, you need the past tense, no, not X, or even just no. Clarification request. This indicates that an utterance has been misunderstood, either in comprehensibility and or accuracy, and that a repetition or a reformulation is required. For example, what do you mean by X? Pardon me, can you repeat what you said? Repetition indicates an error by repeating it, and usually drawing attention to it with intonation or syllable stressing. For example, walked. Here's a chart showing the frequency and distribution of the types of corrective feedback noticed in the classroom observation. Elicitation is slightly larger than the other two large contributions of feedback, those being explicit correction and metalinguistic clues. Only a small percentage of the feedback were clarification requests or repetition. Here's a chart showing whether there was learner response to corrective feedback, also known as uptake. Mostly, there was not uptake on the part of the learners. This could be explained by either the teacher continuing the topic and not providing an opportunity for the student to respond, or the student could not have noticed the error, or the demand for output. Some instances of feedback were difficult to categorize. This included multiple types within a feedback sequence, or multiple characteristics of different types within one utterance. It depended really upon the illocutionary force of one type over the other as to whether Lister and Ranta categorized their samples as being one type or another. Also problematic was the function of certain words, such as no with the rising intonation, no, okay, nice idea, and and The function had to be prioritized over the form, and relying on the three questions, whether there was a clear indication of error, being explicit or implicit, and whether it was input prompting or input providing or output prompting was also the other two questions. Also something to consider was the inferred intent of the teacher and the perception of by the learners. Do they recognize it as feedback? Does this influence how they may respond? Notably with these certain words such as no, okay, nice idea, and one really needs to look at what these words represent, which is your answer is not really correct. Some examples. Multiple types of corrective feedback within a turn. Student, pollution. Teacher, pollution is the noun. Teacher, it is. Teacher, pollute. Teacher, we need the adjective. Student, polluted. This first turn by the teacher was one long utterance. In Lister and Ranta, they coded their instances of these as one, but it is really several instances. Another area where it was difficult to categorize the feedback was what I'll refer to as hedging, or, as mentioned, the semantic equivalent of saying not really. Example, teacher, Yazid, what do you think this could be? Traffic jams? It's the first question, isn't it? They are better in traffic jams. Student, maybe. Pass the traffic. Teacher, okay. Student, go through the small streets. Teacher, okay. The traffic jams are. Again, what is the function of the words and okay? Another example. Teacher, what do you think for the next one? Student, scooter taxi. The vehicle looks like a golf cart. Teacher, a nice idea. Teacher, what do you think? Addressing another student. Peer, tuk-tuk. Teacher, yeah, okay. In conclusion, it's a very real possibility and also a very strong probability that some instances of teacher corrective feedback were categorically misplaced due to misinterpretation of intent or function of the teacher's comments. This implies the need for a more robust and fine-grained analytical methodology in future efforts to characterize and capture a more accurate account of corrective feedback and its characteristics in a classroom observation context. I've outlined some guiding definitional principles as well as rationales for the results with uptake. Going forward, it would be useful to keep these things in mind. Thank you.